Well, I'm just a bill, yeah, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Oh yeah, there's a bill here in the Senate, and it's called the People Act. Gives power to the voter, and not those corporate hacks. Now this bill will make it easy for voters to have their say. So let's make elections fair and pass S1 today.
That was completely natural. It's very, look how human John Hickenlooper is. He can play the banjo. He's just like one of us. He's one of the people. Who are these handlers that think that that was a good thing and a good idea to spread? Just advice to everyone. Don't try to go viral. If you're trying too hard, it's not going to work. We've talked a lot about HR1 and S1. That's what he's talking about right there. Actually, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer have both come to the Senate floor to talk about this. Is pretty rare for both the leaders to come and speak out against it. So it's a big deal to them. It's a voting reform bill, but it also has major free speech implications here, which we need to obviously defend, and we need to actively defend because we can't rest on our laurels anymore. Yesterday, we talked about the importance of freedom of religion with Sam Brownback. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of freedom of speech. We can't forget it. We must advocate for it. Here is Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor.
A partisan power grab in search of a justification. That's what we have here. There's no crisis. Our Democratic friends just want the power to rewire our democracy on a partisan basis. It would let Washington Democrats act like a nationwide board of elections on steroids, neutering popular things like voter ID and forcing legalized ballot harvesting onto all 50 states. This partisan power grab failed to advance out of committee for the same reason it must never, ever become law as currently written. It will shatter public confidence in our democracy if the Democratic Party decides it can rig the rules.
Bradley A. Smith, chairman of the Institute for Free Speech. Mr. Smith, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
Good to talk to you. You got a banjo on you? You ready to bring out the banjo and play a little bit for us?
I do play the banjo, and it didn't even occur to me to bring it on with me this morning.
Wow, that's great. Very impressive. What if you did it? You just totally one-upped Hickenlooper right there. That'd be impressive.
I think the only thing worse than HR1 and S1 is Hickenlooper's video, or maybe it's vice versa.
It's a way better joke than I came out with. Touche, sir. Let's start with what is the left? What do the Democrats say HR1 and S1 does? What's their best pitch for it?
Well, really in a nutshell, it's kind of there in Hickenlooper's little video. I mean, they say, well, this will end special interest influence, and then they say we'll make it easier to vote, and that's going to make a better democracy. And I think on both counts they're wrong. For example, in his little banjo picking, he specifically says this will end PAC influence, and yet oddly, there's not a thing in the bill that actually even deals with PACs. So it's kind of a the whole bill is just this conglomeration of progressive wish list for elections. Senator McConnell in the clip you showed mentioned a couple of things relating to election administration, like legalizing ballot harvesting, doing away with voter ID laws. It would also impose same-day registration with no check. The person just walks into the polling place and says, "Hi, I'm John Smith. I get to vote." But it also has a number of speech limiting provisions that are very dangerous, and a big public financing component in which your tax dollars, literally billions of your tax dollars, would go to support politicians' campaigns. And the better a politician was at raising small dollar contributions, like, say, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the more money she would get from the federal government to keep running her campaigns.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we definitely need to talk about that. So if I'm right with interpreting, I would almost view it as like two separate things within these bills. You have the voting rights part, like the same day registration and all that stuff. And then you have the free speech implications. And that's what, obviously, I'd love to talk with you as chairman of the Institute for Free Speech. Let's do it. What are some other examples of limiting freedom of speech? And then we'll build to the public financing. How does this limit freedom of speech?
Well, a couple of things it does is one is it imposes a lot of new rules, mainly in the reporting area, that people will have to start reporting to the government any kind of speech they engage in and who's paying and so on. Now, historically, we've had that for a long time, but it's been limited to speech by candidates or efforts to specifically promote the election or defeat of candidates. And now the government's going to impose, under this bill, would impose a new standard in which you would have to report your name and address and so on if you were funding discussion of public affairs, public issues, things that weren't even related to a candidate. It would also then require more disclaimers on small internet ads, which historically have been an area where low budget campaigns, candidates without a lot of money, could compete pretty easily because it doesn't cost a lot to run on the internet, or to run ads on the internet. So now they would impose a bunch of new regulations on that, which is going to benefit incumbents, and it's going to benefit candidates who already have sort of a large presence, like Nancy Pelosi or others in the congressional leadership. And then one of the things it does is all of these new rules would be enforced by a newly partisan Federal Election Commission. Historically, the FEC has had 6 commissioners, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. I actually served as chairman of the FEC back in 2004 and was a commissioner for several years in that time period. And they want to do away with that bipartisan proposal, which makes sure that no party can use this as a weapon against its opponents. And they want to make it a 3-2 commission. Of course, President Biden would appoint the first slate of commissioners under this new commission. And so you'd kind of turn the FEC into a partisan weapon to appoint or to enforce a whole new complex system of reporting rules that are going to govern far more speech than has ever before been considered campaign speech.
That one, that's blatant, right? As if the other things aren't blatant either. That one is in your face blatant. Can you run through maybe a hypothetical example or scenario if this passes of what this could do to stifle free speech? Can you maybe walk me through what a campaign may be up against or what it would look like for them?
Okay, well, let's suppose that you had an organization. It's kind of what we call social welfare organizations. And those include like the Sierra Club, the NRA, down to small little local groups that are organized to advocate for issues, right? And you want to run some ads. Say you want to buy, a few $1,000s worth of radio ads urging your local congressman to support a piece of legislation. Okay. Under this new law, you would have to determine, does this promote or attack the candidate? And you're saying it doesn't do either. It just tries to urge people to contact him and urge him to support this legislation. But now you would have to state whether it's supporting or opposing the candidate. Moreover, then you're going to have to announce who all your donors are and put them on a public list again with their home addresses and all that sort of thing. So these donors are going to sit there and say, well, wait a minute, I don't oppose candidate, my Congressman Jones. I just wanted him to support this bill, but he's going to now be listed as opposing that candidate, funding it. So that's just one example of the sort of information that is both misleading to the public. It may deter some people from wanting to give. It's complex for the organizations involved. They have to decide, does my ad attack him? Does it promote him? What will the court say? What will the partisan Federal Election Commission say? So there's going to be a lot of guesswork and vagueness in it. And we find that historically, there's a lot of empirical data shows that kind of vagueness causes people to simply leave the arena, not risk speaking out on issues that are important to them.
Wow. That was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.